The Dark Tower is a fantasy movie directed by Nikolaj Arcel. It is based on the very famous saga by Stephen King, and it stars Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. I have not read any of the Dark Tower novels, but I have to say, after watching this movie I really want to check out The Dark Tower, because this movie is a mixed bag. It is not a good movie, but it isn't neither a horrible movie, one of the worst movies of the year. It didn't piss me off or anything. It's a mixed bag, and if I have to compare it to another series of novel that was adapted into a movie, I have to compare it to Solomon Kane. You know, Michael J. Bassett directed this, stars James Purefoy, and this is the book. It collects pretty much every single short story close to that. I love this book, and I actually really like the movie. It's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, and I think that The Dark Tower is going to be pretty similar to Solomon Kane, in the sense that, from what I've heard, it is not faithful to the books. It actually is kind of a sequel to the books, just like Solomon Kane, the movie is kind of a prequel to the story, with added backstory that was not needed, with different characterizations. It isn't all that faithful, so the fans aren't all that happy about that. But at the same time, for those that don't know the original property, it is not that big of a deal. And honestly, I didn't have that many problems story-wise with The Dark Tower. I was not particularly confused. It does feel pretty generic, which is kind of weird, because there is this huge mythology with these novels, and this seems like we've been there and done that situation. I mean, there is this Dark Tower, and it protects all these different universes and worlds and whatnot, and there are monsters, evil spirits, demons, whatever, and Matthew McConaughey's Man in Black is trying to destroy the Dark Tower so that the darkness reigns supreme, and then he has to get the power of children who have the shine from The Shining to destroy the tower. And there is this one kid who is the most powerful one of all, who has this powerful shine and whatever, and he gets, in one way or another, to this other world where there is Idris Elba, who is a gunslinger, who is not a gunslinger anymore, but still is. It is confusing if you stop thinking about it, which is not a huge compliment, honestly. Not even that big of a deal, because it's kind of stream of consciousness. You're just watching the movie, you have to accept what's happening, it just flows. Only that what's happening on screen is not as interesting as it could have been. Because, first of all, some scenes that could have been very fun, especially one scene in an amusement park, it's very dark. It was pretty hard to see what was going on. There is this giant creature apparently that's moving around. I wasn't able to make up what was happening on screen. It was just like, what's that? You can see the silhouettes, but it's dark silhouettes on a bluish dark background, so it's just a mess, that scene. But other scenes are pretty fun. Whenever there is action in this movie, I liked it quite a lot. It's fun, especially watching Idris Elba go around with the gun, just swinging it and then going and reloading and shooting this thing in the head, and there is another boom and he goes and shoots. That is fun, I quite like that, but there isn't enough action to make this an action movie. There isn't enough fantasy elements, honestly, to make this a fantasy, because they have these rat people who work for the Men in Black, and they are not interesting. They're just generic villains who look like the ones from Suicide Squad. Some of them have human faces that they stole from someone. Then there's just... It's very hard to talk about this movie because it's generic, it's not bad generic, it's not great generic, it's just watchable generic action, fantasy. I wanted this movie to focus more on the fantasy elements and the western elements, because the only western thing in this movie is the revolver that the gunslinger uses. Because other than that, there's little to no western element in this movie. The acting was pretty good for what they had to work with. I mean, Idris Elba is always good, Matthew McConaughey chews the scenery as always with his weird accent, pronunciation of everything, he's always chill and whatnot. The little kid, well, the kid in the movie is actually pretty good. I was surprised by that. He is an interesting character, he has kind of an arc during the movie, so that was fun to watch. The music itself is not bad, it's middle of the road, generic fantasy movie, so that's fine. The CGI, sometimes it's very good, other times it's TV movie level quality. And they are going to make a TV show of The Dark Tower. And I think it's gonna have the same cast, or at least Idris Elba, I hope so. Because if that's it, this actually does feel like a pilot episode. Like, okay, we know the characters, we know what they're gonna do next, well, we have set them up to have endless adventures for X years, X seasons, so that's honestly what this all feels like. And do I recommend the movie? Not really, but at the same time, if you watch it, you're not gonna hate yourself. It's just, you can skip it. You can skip it. I recommend watching it only for the action scenes, but you can easily do that in 5 months' time, or even less, when someone uploads all the cool clips on YouTube. And the trailers themselves have all the best bits, so just watch all the trailers. You get to see all the cool-ass reloading that Roland does. It's amazing, I loved it. Other than that, it's mediocre. It's a very mediocre film. It's not horrible. There are some good qualities to it, but overall, I mean, giving this work to a director who has never made a big budget action movie, who doesn't even speak the English language all that well, who actually learned English very well. Well, he said that he learned it very well, complex English, by reading the Dark Tower novels in English. So that's something, I guess. So I think I will adapt the new Solomon Kane since I read the novel. Oh wait, no, did I read? The first novels that I read in English were the Percy Jackson ones, so I can adapt the third movie. That's gonna be fun. All joking aside, have you watched The Dark Tower? Do you like the novels, and what do you think of this adaptation? Do you like it or dislike? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching. To like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.